Larry Morris lived the kind of story most young athletes can only dream about. 4 winning seasons and a national championship at Georgia Tech. Then on to the big time, 12 years as an NFL linebacker.
He was a hard hitter and, enjoyed the game, enjoyed being in on the fray.
At the height of his game, Morris intercepted the ball and helped the Chicago Bears win the 1963 World Championship game.
And you remember your friend Jimmy Orr played for the Colts?
The problem is the man who lived the story can't remember most of it and can no longer speak.
And yet there's that twinkle in his eye. You know he's there, and you know he'd like to communicate, but he can't do it.
It's hard. It's hard to come see him.
Morris, who's now 76 and living in an assisted care facility in Austell, was a successful developer in his 40s when he began suffering memory lapses. Kay says they jokingly nicknamed him the absent-minded professor.
But the more I think about it, I think he was struggling, and we didn't know it. Struggling to remember little things that most people could remember.
By his 50s, Larry began making strange business decisions, losing a lot of money.
It was quite a shock when it all came to hit the fan, and you realize there is a big problem. Hey there, how are you?
Kay Morris now believes her husband's dementia was caused by repeated concussions suffered in 20 years of playing football, where big hits seem to come with the territory.
Something magical about running somebody over as hard as you can and it not hurting. I mean, that's what we do,
Brain damage is something 31-year-old Chris Nowinski never thought about in his playing days.
And that was the big, most exciting part of the game was when you really laid somebody out. And, you're too young to really understand the consequences.
Nowinski played football for Harvard, then became a professional wrestler for the WWE, until he says he had to give it all up because of throbbing headaches, depression, and memory loss.
The world was a confusing place because something happened 5 minutes ago I couldn't remember. I couldn't recall people's names who I've been known for years.
And how old were you?
24. I was 24 years old when I couldn't remember my friends' names. And for an extended period of time, it wasn't just during the concussion.
For years, there have been questions about what hits like this do to a player's brain. But inside the Bedford, Massachusetts Veterans Administration Medical Center, neuropathologist Dr. Ann McKee is studying donated brains.
This is a fairly small brain.
And finding something troubling.
This is a devastating disorder. The thing I also wanted to show you is this.
McKee has examined the brains of former football players from the NFL, college, and even high school, and found they were riddled with a disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, which is linked to early dementia.
And I think that we just felt invincible. We thought the players went out there and knocked their head, and it was like a video game, and there were no long-term consequences. So this has been surprising.
Dr. McKee has examined the brains of a dozen former football players, and she says every single one of them had damage linked to head trauma. And she says often that damage wasn't in just one part of the brain, it was all over the brain. Even the brain of an 18-year-old high school football player who suffered multiple concussions.
And this is tremendous damage.
Has the kind of damage McKee usually only sees in much older men who die from Alzheimer's disease.
What it says to me is that we have to radically change the way we're playing football right now.
For the last few years, McKee, Nowinski, and Boston University researchers have been pushing the NFL to acknowledge the link between football and brain damage. And after years of denying that link, the league is now willing to make some changes in both how the game is played and practiced.
Not that there's any research that says we should or have to, but I think we want to be a cutting-edge league that tries to be ahead of the curve as opposed to behind the curve.
Falcons president Rich McKay, who co-chairs the NFL's competition committee that makes the rules of the game, says the league has already taken steps to reduce helmet-to-helmet contact.
There's ways to limit it. There's drills that you can say yes to and no to. There's times you can say this is fine. There's times you can say let's not do that. So I think all of that's being discussed, and I think it's important to do.
The NFL has also instituted new rules requiring concussed players be examined by an independent doctor before being returned to play, and mandating brain injury training for all medical staff. And McKay says the culture of the game needs to change too, to encourage players to come forward when they're hurt.
We've probably gotten ourselves too far in the sense that you've got so many tough guys that have come along that a lot of guys don't report and don't tell the doctors where they are. I think we're going to change that culture. I think some of the players themselves will help us.
Larry Morris's family says he loved the game, but he paid too high a price.
He was fun. He was my friend. He was my best man at my wedding. So it's kind of hard to lose your best friend.
As much as he loved pro football, I wonder if he would have traded 20 years of a normal life for the opportunity to play 12 years of pro football. I just wonder if he would, you know. I don't think so if he had that choice. But we did not even think about it.